Welcome to the Phelan Focus, where ambition meets action. Whether you're building a business, navigating your career, or seeking better performance, you're in the right place. I'm Phelan, your host, and each week we'll dive into insights from industry experts, share performance strategies, and explore the stories that have shaped success. Today, we're going to be talking about my journey in becoming an entrepreneur, coach, and a consultant, and how it has all culminated in launching Projection and the Phelan Focus. Let's get focused. Let's start with my journey going from an industry expert to the founder and CEO of Projection. So you would think that having 2 decades of experience in the military would be perfect for transitioning into a consulting company. Yes and no. I've actually had 3 careers simultaneously. So I've had over 18 years of experience in the military as an engineering, infantry, logistics, and operations officer. I've been a company commander. I've started organizations in the military from the ground up, from 0 to 200, creating frameworks, culture, and recruiting soldiers and training soldiers in order for them to thrive in that organization. It was an incredibly rewarding experience. But what actually helped me the most were my other 2 careers. So my second career was building myself up as an industry expert. So my background being in the health and wellness industry as a program developer, health and wellness coach, and trainer, then moving into construction, project management, process management, getting into logistics, finally leveraging that in e-commerce consulting and managing, putting businesses on the Amazon marketplace. And then from there, I rebranded, got more training, got experience in continuous improvement, and became a tech and IT consultant and coach. So that was my second career. My third career was as an entrepreneur. So that's everything from having side hustles and odd jobs in high school to then launching my personal training business in college, having my own book of business while I was in college, and moving to LA, starting my own personal training business in LA, building that up. It was an incredibly competitive environment, starting a handyman company, building that up, getting into real estate development, renovations of real estate and single family homes. From there, getting into e-commerce, marketing, launching an e-com company, and then learning more, eventually getting into textiles and starting a textiles light manufacturing company out of North Carolina. So luckily, I built myself up professionally with all my skills. I built up my experience as an entrepreneur. I built myself up in the military. I was provided the opportunity to walk away from all of it and go overseas and live overseas in Europe for a year, managing a large logistics project, we'll say, with the military. And that gave me the time to reflect on my military career, my professional career, and my entrepreneur career, and really identify what are the things that I love. So I thought, okay, when I get back to the States, I can wrap up my military career. I could always go back into the tech space and get back into consulting and working in e-com, that sort of thing. But what do I really enjoy? I love mentoring and developing people. I love coaching. I love performance, and I love being a consultant. So I decided to double down, and what I say is I triple down. So I eliminated my military career and closed the loop on that. And I decided not to go back into my professional career, and that led me into launching Projection. Now, you would think that being a company commander, being a military officer would be the perfect transition into being a CEO, maybe for some types of organizations. And maybe that best prepared me for being an entrepreneur as a leader. Well, it doesn't necessarily directly apply. So being a military officer is really great in an environment where there's a hierarchical structure, where there's a lot of command and control, and where everyone is used to having some sort of organizational structure. In startups, that's not necessarily the case. So my professional career working in e-commerce, health and wellness, construction, real estate development, and then eventually tech exposed me actually to more types of work environments and methodologies that people have for working, collaborating, working as teams. So it was a much more diverse experience in that realm. And so I was able to take my passion, vision for being an entrepreneur, pairing that with my leadership and organizational development skills, being in the military, and then combining it with my professional skills in project process management and continuous improvement to actually found Projection and launch our unique style of consulting. So I'm often asked, how did my background shape the way that I approach decision making, problem solving, and of course, being a leader? So you'd think, again, the military would be the go-to source, but it's been a combination and a blend of three of my careers that has cultivated the culture at Projection, my approach to leadership and communication, having teams collaborate, having teams work together in an agile environment that's led us to being able to have this unique decision-making model that we have. Now, in the military, it's very hierarchical, and also in consulting, it can be that way too. It's very straightforward. There's a client, there's a consultant, there's the company that we're working for, and the decision that we need to make. We're more often more advisors than anything. It's less dictatorial as it would be in the military. There's some aspects of what you could say democracy in the military. You have advisors, you have senior military advisors that are working with you, but oftentimes whatever you say goes. And typically you own that decision and the organization drives on. In an entrepreneurial environment, it's less of that. Now, ultimately, as the CEO and the founder, I've got the final say. But one thing with starting a company is that you have to accept that you know very little about everything, and you know a lot about an incredibly niche aspect of your business. And so what's different about how I approach myself as a leader in an entrepreneurial and a startup environment is that it really is a more collaborative effort. And so what that looks like is I have to provide the structure, resources, the support, and then the guidance in order for my team to collectively make decisions and guide me as a CEO along the way with executing the vision, the strategy, and the plans that we've come up with for the business. And so this unique blend has allowed me to cultivate my unique leadership style and the culture that we have in Projection that makes it incredibly collaborative and almost a communal sense in the way that we build our business. So it might not be me developing myself specifically for partnerships, sales, strategy. I might be able to collaborate with my team on some of these things and train them to support me and approach it from a more collaborative effort. And so what that'll do is my team will actually drive the resources or the requests that they need to me. And then that actually dictates the types of things that I need to focus on externally as a business. So instead of me reading a bunch of CEO books or leadership books and just focusing on that one niche thing of how do I be a better leader, it's actually a more blend of what are the things that I can do to support my team. So what are the things that my team needs to be successful? And then what can I focus on as a leader to get better at? So it's not necessarily just leadership, sales, and strategy. It might be more networking, partners, finding them resources, or additional ways where I can train and develop the team and then distribute those resources into the organization. And so as an entrepreneur, it's a mutual approach to their professional development, my professional development, and the organizational development as a whole. So the advice that I would give to other entrepreneurs that are looking to transition into a leadership role, so we're basically talking about an entrepreneur that's moving from what we consider a solopreneur business, where they're the one-man band. They're doing everything. They're doing their own marketing, their website, their networking, their sales, and then the execution of whatever their product and delivery of their services. So my advice, if you're going to be moving and scaling and growing your business, and you're trying to get out of that solopreneur, phase of your business, and you're going to be building a team, it's not necessarily to immediately transition into a CEO role. That's ridiculous. So you need to grow yourself as a leader as the organization grows. And so what I like to say is what it takes to start a business is different than what it takes to grow and scale a business. And it's the same for leadership. The type of leadership that it takes to start a business is different than the leadership that it takes to grow a business and scale a business. So with culture being the focus, what that'll do is that will help you guide yourself in the areas of leadership that you need to develop in order to lead an organization of that particular culture. And so if you're looking for an organization with a soft approach to performance or a less loose approach to wellness and life-work balance, then you can dictate your leadership style in that direction. So what sets Projection apart in the business optimization consulting space? Of course, is my background, which is a combination of project and process management, continuous improvement, and focusing on optimization or performance, whether it's personally and individually or collectively as a group, an organization, or company. There are other consulting companies out there that are absolutely phenomenal. What we focus on is a unique approach that I've been developing, which is called the Momentum Operating System. Essentially, we split the business down the middle, we identify the core components, and we identify which of those core components are infrastructure versus superstructure. And so what you'll see oftentimes happen when we work with our clients or when I'm consulting with the businesses is they'll say, yeah, we have a lot of issues. There's a lot of things that we want to get done. And they have a massive to-do list. And they might have it broken down into, 2 or 3 different categories, but they won't be able to tell me if it's an infrastructure task or an infrastructure project versus a superstructure project. So obviously the difference being an infrastructure task or project is going to be something that is foundational to the business. So that's going to be legal, finance, HR, operations, project management, the things that make a business, the things that you can't really have, like the foundational structure of an IT infrastructure in order for you to launch the superstructure, which is going to be your website, or if you're going to have your infrastructure for your business, which might include strategy, that's going to guide the development of your social media, your branding, and then of course your marketing or your PR campaigns. And so what sets us apart is our approach to business management, or our approach to this infrastructure versus superstructure. And all of that's covered in the Momentum operating system. So the different industries that projection focuses on is primarily tech, e-commerce, health and wellness, and not-for-profit. And the way that we approach optimization in each one of these businesses is going to be a little different. So obviously in tech, it's a completely different culture. It's a different product. It's a different experience that business is trying to produce, whether it's a product or a service, versus your health and wellness and your e-com. Their optimization is going to be focused on different KPIs. And then of course, not-for-profit, it's a totally different ballgame. They have a completely different culture. They're more focused on impact. They're focused on their mission, which is phenomenal. At Projection, we like to partner with our clients, our businesses, our consultants that are high impact organizations. So these are basically mission driven organizations that they have something more than just providing a product or a service that they're trying to solve or influence some sort of a cause. And so the optimization for each one of those businesses in every one of those sectors is going to be tuned to whatever the product or the service is. So let's walk through some of the core services that we offer at Projection and how it relates to optimization with our clients. So of course, for every one of these industries, they're all basically businesses or organizations that require some sort of infrastructure, superstructure, modality that's going to be applied to it. And so the services that we offer, number one, is going to be assessing the business, because when we work with our clients, it's either going to be in advisory, in consulting, or in management. So we might have a client that comes to us they think they're ready for consulting, they're ready to rock and roll, they want to grow, they want to scale. That's awesome. Let's pump the brakes. Okay. We want to ensure that they have a business structure that's in place, and they essentially was considered an operating system for the business, which is why we came up with the Momentum operating system. We want to ensure that our clients have an operating system that is functioning, that they're collaborating, they're conducting project management, they're conducting, effective communication, they're having effective meetings, they're able to track tasks, they have their goals, they have their strategy set up. Basically, they have the foundational aspects for operating and running that business in place before we begin creating and implementing solutions. So if a business isn't ready, if an organization isn't ready for that yet, we put them in advisory and we guide them and we help mentor them and advise them for redesigning their operating system and ensuring that they have everything in place from an infrastructural standpoint in order for us to solve and implement, some of those problems through our custom solutions. So once they're ready, we then move into consulting. So what does that look like? It's typically a 90-day engagement. We have a program. The program falls under the Momentum consulting system. So it's a systematic approach how we walk clients through implementing the Momentum operating system. So once you're in advisory and you're ready, you have your infrastructure in place, then we go through the Momentum consulting system. So with that, we're going to walk you through your business. We're going to audit all of the different infrastructure and superstructure areas. We're going to look at the problems that you're having, and we're going to identify what are those potential solutions. And so with the consulting, we're not only looking at the symptom, but we're looking at the cause. So what does that look like? Well, if you break the business down, number one, into infrastructure and superstructure, and then you break both of those down to those core components, we can do a better root cause analysis of what those issues are that business is experiencing. So if you just have a list of problems where you can't identify and prioritize, where do these problems fall in the spectrum? Is it an infrastructure problem or is it a superstructure problem? Then we can't prioritize what the solution is. So you might have an issue with marketing and you think that, we're missing social media, we need social media. That's absolutely fantastic. And there are consulting agencies out there that will then do a brand strategy, or they'll come up with a marketing campaign. They'll come up with, all sorts of social media assets for you. So they'll come up with a brand strategy, they'll come up with a marketing campaign, and they'll produce all sorts of social media assets for you. The problem there is unless you have the operational system in place for you to manage those assets and implement them and be consistent about uploading them and engaging with your customers, really it just turns into more things to do on your to-do list. And so when we're consulting our clients, we walk them through the momentum consulting system. We're observing and auditing, and I try to do a better root cause analysis for every one of these components of the business. And then from there, we can come up with those custom solutions for those core components, and then finally move into implementation. Once implementation is done, depending on what aspect of their business that we're consulting on, or what has grown or what's scaled, then we are looking at moving into management. And so the management services could include everything from branding, social media, website, continue on with consulting even to help, create solutions and implement solutions for different aspects of the business. And so with the management aspect, once we've helped our clients kind of solidify one of those core components, if they don't have the capacity to manage it, they can hand that component off to projection. So we have the ability to manage different aspects of our clients' businesses, therefore walking them through advisory and ensuring that they have an operating system, walking into consulting so that we can walk them through the momentum consulting system, and then finally into management, where we can take the burden of some of those aspects of their business over, and then we can manage them inside of our own infrastructure. So the types of problems that we typically solve for clients, and as you can assume by our slogan, we turn chaos into opportunity. So when clients come to us, they're typically in overwhelm. They've got so much going on. And what I love to say is that's a good thing. I mean, if you have a lot going on as an entrepreneur, it would be a bad day if there wasn't anything going on or if it was really quiet. If you think that operationally your business is quiet, it probably means that you have blind spots and there's areas of your business that you haven't identified that you need to grow and develop. And so when business owners or entrepreneurs are coming to us and they're in overwhelm, we get them into advisory, we walk them through the momentum operating system, and we help them break that overwhelm or break that chaos down into core components. By doing that, we can then go into consulting and we can get a better root cause analysis of what those problems are. And that might be anything from, again, they think that they need help with marketing, they actually need help with branding, or the branding might allude to culture, or they need to reassess their values or their mission. And so we help our clients gain better goals, direction, strategy, and planning through project process management and implementation, implementing continuous improvement methodologies, so that not only do our clients come in and we provide these solutions, but we help them create an operating system that while we're applying these solutions for them, they're continuously improving the organization, because that's the method that we've been using at Projection, and that's what's been incredibly effective for our clients in the past. I'm going to go to other problems. So some other problems that we might solve for our clients could be as simple as implementing project management. So again, you have a meeting, there's a lot of tasks. What do you do with those? Do you have a project management methodology that you use? Maybe you're using something that is from your background, which might be, agile or might be tech focused. But as you grow your organization, what I like to say is, HR has no idea what some of these things are. They might understand process management, but do they really understand agile? Do they understand Scrum? And so with our clients, we might leverage some of the methodologies that we've come up with at Projection, which has been a management method or a project management method that every one of those teams and every one of those departments can communicate in the same way and effectively do project management, task management, have effective meetings so that they can stay on top of what their workloads are across the team. And so it might be anything from designing meeting structures or agenda structures. Believe it or not, that is a super easy, low-hanging fruit thing to do. That is ensuring that they're communicating effectively in meetings, all the way to project management structures where they're capturing their tasks from those meetings, they're looking at tasks from goals, and they're being put into a methodology that ensures that they're consistently growing or consistently executing those tasks and providing value along the way. Okay, I feel like that was playing on that one. How does Projection's holistic approach differ from traditional consulting companies? How does Projection's holistic approach differ from So how Projection's holistic approach differs from traditional consulting companies is that we have really taken the experiences from our clients and implemented them into our continuous improvement model, so that even our approach is getting better as we go. And so there are other consulting companies out there that use that traditional model. It's completely effective for some organizations and for some problem sets, but not necessarily for every model. And so if you look at some of the larger consulting companies, they might be brought into a small business and they're basically trying to, come up with a one-off solution, or they have their one-off methodology that doesn't really work for that particular industry or that particular business. And so the way that our model is different is that, as opposed to the traditional companies that may or may not use some of these antiquated models, we have more of an agile entrepreneurial model that is custom to each client. And so we're able to not only, create a custom team by analyzing the core components of the business, and so that we can create a custom delivery team or a consulting team that can be industry experts for that client, or ideally has been in the situation that the clients have been in the past in their industries and their previous businesses, that can provide, that insight to those clients. So what inspired us to create the Momentum Internship Program is, as we were launching Projection, we knew that we wanted to create an internship program, because from my past experience, not having ever been in one and knowing what I know now, I know that there's an incredible amount of value that you can gain from being in a well-structured internship program. Well, initially, when we were conducting our market research, where we were interviewing some of the applicants into our own company for our own program that we had designed, we were asking them, have you been in a program before? What was that like? What are the pros and cons? What did you get out of it? What did you not get out of it? And describe your ideal internship program. And we basically just built that. It's pretty straightforward. Along with that, having decades of experience in multiple industries and having multiple avenues of career, also knowing that there are things that a young professional needs to implement early on in their career to ensure that they're going to be successful as they're launching their career. So we combined the things that our internship participants, the applicants, and the candidates were asking for and what was missing out of their previous experiences, along with what we knew they would need in order to be successful out in the market. And that is what's been the core foundation of the design of the Momentum Internship Program. So what inspired that? Well, I've had assistants that have worked for me in the past. I've had soldiers that have been under my command in the past that have transitioned out of the military. And so working with them and seeing this massive gap, whether it's vocational skills, professional skills, or just career development in general, I knew that these are the aspects that would make a strong career development plan for a young professional. And so, again, my passion is consulting, it's coaching, it's mentorship, it's training. And so when I saw the opportunity for us to design or redesign this traditional internship program, it really invigorated me to create not just a new model, but to completely restructure from the ground up the traditional internship model into the Momentum Internship model that you see today. That's at the backbone of it is vocational, professional, and career development. Now, the traditional internship model, oftentimes what will happen in an organization is the organization will be established, and then they'll grow. They'll focus more on the development of the organization and the products and the services and just the foundational structure aspect of it. Once they have the bandwidth and the resources, that's typically when they say, okay, let's now start to design and look at creating an internship model. Or worst case, they don't have a model and they just bring in interns kind of haphazardly into a loose model. So luckily, with my experience in training and development, and when we started Projection, I knew that if we were going to be able to have participants in our internship program be able to partake in this startup culture and the experience of growing and building a business, we would have to have an incredibly structured program. And so the difference between a traditional internship model and Projection's model is that with participant first, we look at things like their current workload, if they're in school, if they have a job, what are their other requirements that they have going on in their life? And so we call that the life-work balance. So with our participant first model, we put the needs of the participant first, and we've essentially designed the entire company around the internship and around the needs of our participants. So we have some pretty simple rules, like we don't use email internally to communicate. It's overwhelming, especially if you have a lot of other things going on. We don't have meetings before 8 a.m. We don't have meetings after 4 p.m. We don't have meetings after noon on Friday. We don't have meetings, all day Thursday. Because from being in all these different industries and being in those traditional models from the past, I know that, very quickly, if you try to bring in interns into the traditional business model, there's so much going on that it's hard to keep up with, and it's hard for them to balance with their current, requirements of their life. Again, some of them have full-time jobs, they have families that they're taking care of. They're going to grad school at night, or they're going to grad school, on the weekends, or they're full-time students and they're in their senior year of college, and they're still trying to figure out how to balance, college with school, or college with some sort of part-time job. And so the model that we've created, participant first, not only to ensure that the well-being of the participant, their vocational goals, their professional goals, and their career goals are put first, and that's the backbone of the program, is ensuring that while they're coming through the program, they're being developed in these various ways. And from there, once we have that structure, then we can give them projects. Then we can give them those additional things that are going to add to their portfolio, add to their vocational experience, and then leverage that structure to then input coaching and mentorship to ensure that they're put in a prime position to launch their career. Now, in the Momentum Internship Program, how our participants are supported through mentorship, training, and real-world experiences is, again, through that Momentum Internship model. So what we do is we've created a 24-week model with 24 modules. It's broken down into 6 phases. And in each one of those phases, there's a focus on a certain level of vocational, professional, and career development. Now, with that, as you scale through the program, you scale up in the complexity of your projects, or the demand or the workload of your projects. We ensure that it's balanced out with the other requirements that you have in your life. And what we like to do is, as you acclimate into the program, we're adding coaching, we're adding mentorship, and then we're slowly acclimating you into being able to partake in some of the larger projects. So by doing so, you acclimate into the program, you're getting the training that you need, and then once you've acclimated, then we provide those real world experiences. We have you come to client meetings. You get to sit in and learn from consultants. And in often cases, it's our goal that we put you in front of clients, and we have you consulting clients with us. Again, because it doesn't work to just be observational. And so those traditional programs, it's very observational. But what we want is, we want our participants to ensure that they're getting that real world experience that they can put on their resume, put in their portfolio, and leverage in interviews, that they can say, not only did I watch this happen, but I helped with this. Or in some cases, when I came into the organization, they were missing this core aspect, or the client was missing this core aspect. And I was actually a part of the team that helped develop that. And so that program, or that product, that process that the client needed or the business needed, is actually still being used today. And we have seen that is instrumental during these interviews and the job application process for our participants to be able to leverage that to secure employment after production. So some of the key benefits that participants gain from being in the Momentum Internship Program regarding your vocational, your professional, and your career development is that, number one, vocational. So when we bring them into the program, we want to ensure that they know essentially how to do the job. So projection's not a great place to learn the fundamentals of whatever your vocational skill is. It's a graduate level program. So it's really designed for one of 3 categories: either A, career kickoff track, which is you're a senior in college, you've got a decent amount of experience, maybe you've done a couple of internship programs before. B, you're in graduate school. Okay, so you might have some work experience, maybe you've done a previous internship, you've done a slew of projects, and you really understand the industry that you want to work in. Or C, the last one being your career transition. So this is designed for post-grad. So we're talking guys that are getting out of the military, people that have already had a career, maybe they went back to school, and now they're looking to transition from one industry to another. And so because it's a graduate level program, we ensure that when you come in, that you're up to speed on whatever vocational skills that you need around project management, process management, implementing these solutions, and being an integral part of the team. So that's vocational. With professional development, we have designed a professional development course that mirrors and it follows along that 24-week 6-phase model of the program. So as you're going through the internship program, you're scaling your professional development along the way. And we couple that with a career development model that mirrors that 6-phase 24-week plan, so that you can actually leverage week over week what you're doing in the internship program to grow professionally and to grow in your career, in your career development. And what that might look like is having weekly check-ins, having monthly coachings, monthly performance reviews, having access to advisors, access to mentors. And so there's multiple opportunities along that 24-week path in order for you to learn more about the industry that you want to work in, the types of roles that you would be a good fit for. We, encourage everyone to find a recruiter in that industry that can help assess them and figure out where they're a good fit in the market. Where should they actually be looking for, and then give them feedback on what's happening in the market so that they can ensure that they're applying for the proper positions that they're a good fit for, and that obviously are, being recruited for in the market. So let's talk about some success stories. So we have taken highly competent participants, because what I like to say at Projection is we recruit for culture and competency. So a lot of the participants that are coming into the program are incredibly competent. They're incredibly skilled. They're young professionals. This is a graduate level program. And so these are what I consider rough cut gems or rough cut diamonds. And the Momentum Internship Program is essentially a giant rock tumbler. And so it's a sort of iron sharpens iron mentality, where if you're in a program with a bunch of other rough cut diamonds, it's a diamond cut diamond type of environment where you're bringing in your expertise, your experience, your knowledge, and your skill sets, and you're bumping up against all these other participants that are bringing in the same thing. And so you're able to be exposed to these incredibly competent, skilled, and experienced participants and learn from them, and vice versa, to be able to teach, mentor, and develop your fellow participants in the cohort. A few of the success stories include participants that are coming in with 1 or 2 contacts on LinkedIn, but an incredible resume, and then going through the program, and after a couple of months being recruited by Apple. And so all of that is a testament to the design of the program, and not only the experiences that they're getting, the exposure to the clients and the projects, but the commitment that we have in the program, that our participants and their life and their professional well-being is put first, so that whatever they're doing in the program, we're ensuring that they're showcasing, it's being spotlit, it's going on their portfolio, it's going on their resume, and they're including that in their employment journey as they're continuing to get out in the market, go to networking events, to talk to mentors, and essentially be recruited. Our fit for success of the program is that when you leave Projection, there's no reason why you shouldn't be getting recruited by another company. It's an incredibly structured program. We have some incredibly talented young professionals that are in it. And so as they're going through this sort of rock tumbler, right, this gem polishing machine, little by little, you're getting more and more exposure to different networks and opportunities. And so along with some of the success stories is that we've had participants that have come in, they've established new programs, they've consulted some of our clients, and they've been able to leverage those experience to land jobs at some pretty large organizations and some pretty fantastic jobs. One kind of funny anecdote is that we had a participant who was a part of one of our IT teams. She was an IT team lead, and it was incredibly rigorous. She loved it. She had a team of, I think it was between 5 and 10 participants at the time that she was managing. And when she finally went to her corporate role, I checked on her and said, "Hey, how'd it go? Like, did we prepare you well?" She said, "Wow, my corporate job is easy compared to the internship program. Like, I'm only managing 3 people." And what's interesting about our program is because it's hyper agile and it's hyper collaborative, is that we work in a lot of sprints. And so a corporate environment is it can be much slower, and you have access to your team members 24/7. So, especially if you're working in an office, you can just walk down the hall instead of everyone working remote. And so it's a testament that we, in some cases, have actually over prepared our participants for their next role, which is really incredible. So the types of projects that participants work on will scale as they're in the organization. So when you first come in, we don't want you to get overwhelmed. It's very common. There's a lot going on. So we give you a warm-up project, a small, maybe 2-week project for you to kind of get acclimated. It gets you using our systems. It gets you communicating during team meetings and really contributing to the organization right off the bat. That's your warm-up project. After that, you're going to get your first team projects. Now you're working with a partner, you're working with a few people, you're getting more acclimated into it. You're also getting more confident in these meetings, communicating to your team, providing project status updates. And then after a few weeks, about, 2+ months, almost 3 months in the program, you should have completed 2 team projects where you're showcasing your project in the Friday company retrospective meeting. You know who everyone is and you're pretty confident. From there, our goal is to get you into a couple of client engagements and to get you client projects. And so that actually provides you with, 2, 3, 4 opportunities to have different types of projects that you're working on, which then are able to be leveraged into your portfolio. Learn about the MIP is that it's incredibly rigorous. Not a lot of flexibility regarding the design of it, but there is flexibility regarding how you interface with the program. And so there's, key meetings that you have to be in. we never move meetings. We're never late, and meetings are ran on time. So with that, inside of that meeting, there's also a lot of structure. I mean, we have meetings where it is, some sections are down to the minute and down to the second. And so because of the structure of those meetings, because of how rigorous and the approach that we take to those, we're able to be more flexible. So what I like to say is, let's say you have an incredibly structured meeting. Well, if you run that meeting for a couple of weeks, but you need to maybe do a brainstorming, you can actually toss out a certain aspect of that meeting, conduct your brainstorming, jump back into the regular structure, and keep rocking and rolling. And so what that does is next week, because you have that structure that's preset to fall back on, you can get right back on track where you were last week, while also being able to include some of these flexible aspects. So how does that work with being remote? Well, being remote, what's interesting is that we have participants that are all US based in various time zones. It allows participants from different schedules and work-life balances to be able to participate in the program. So again, we place your life first, right? It's that life-work balance approach to ensure that before you start the program, that logistically, you're able to meet all of the requirements. If you can't, that's totally fine. We have rolling cohorts. Let's pick it up whenever your schedule is able to meet the structure of the program, and then get you back in, and then we'll be flexible with different aspects of maybe your one-on-one coachings or some of the projects that you're working on. What's interesting about projection is because a lot of the industries that we consult with aren't logistic heavy. A lot of our consulting is done remotely. Therefore, that allows the participants to have access to our clients, the projects, and then thus be able to affect their portfolio, and they can leverage those. And so some of the industries are tech, e-com, health and wellness, not-for-profit. And so it's quite a variety. What that allows us to do is align the different participants' goals with their different team or their skill set with not only a sector or a client that would benefit them along with their professional development. With onboarding, of course, during the recruiting process, there's a bit of onboarding or pre-onboarding you have to go through. Then you come in week one, it's the access onboarding and orientation period. So we give you access to everything in the system. We orient you to how we work, what your weekly schedule is going to be, the different types of meetings that you're going to have. And then from there, you are immediately contributing to the growth of the organizations. So let me walk you through our onboarding process and how we ensure that participants are set up for success on day one. So during the recruitment process, there's pre-onboarding that you go through. And then week one is going to be your access and orientation. So this is where we share with you all the different types of meetings you're going to be in, the different teams, the people you're going to be working with, and ensure that before you leave that access onboarding, you have everything that you need to be successful. So that's typically on a Wednesday. By Friday, you're already attending meetings. You're showcasing things in the meeting. You're sharing about yourself, and you're prepping for your kickoff on Monday. So after the first week, you move into what we call the acclimation and training period. So the first week, you're getting access to our training, you're meeting with people, you're booking one-on-ones, and they're helping you get spun up on how we do things. They're there to answer any questions for you, and they make themselves available throughout the rest of the onboarding process. So you get your training, get acclimated to the meetings. The expectation in those meetings is really that you're observing from day one, and that you're encouraged to provide input and feedback on how we can improve the meeting, how we can adjust some of our projects, or how we can do better reporting. And so because of that hyper collaborative environment, it's basically expected that you're contributing in those meetings from participation and from feedback so that we can continue to improve this. So that's on week 2. Week 3, you're moving into the third portion of your onboarding, which includes prepping for your project and project assignment. So by then you should have had your workspace designed, you should have access to everything, you should be familiarized, you should have started some of your onboarding training and really understand how we work. You should have been through enough meetings where you can understand what your role is in those meetings and how you can contribute when we prepare you for receiving your first project. And so with that onboarding process, by 3 weeks in, you're already up and running, you have access to everything, and you're ready to start planning your first project. So what makes the Momentum internship program different than other internship programs that are in the market? Well, for starters, I've never been in one. And so when we were designing the internship program from its inception, we completely threw out the traditional internship model. And again, we were looking at what participants needed to be successful in the market. So we looked at, what has their experience been, not other models, but what was their experience in previous programs, what went well and what didn't go well, and what were the things that they wanted to get that weren't delivered on that previous, internship experience. So what makes the Momentum internship program different than other internship programs that are out in the market? Well, number one is participant first. And so from the inception of the internship program, the participant was kept in mind. And so I feel like that's different than what's in the market because it wasn't built around the company. The company was built around the internship program. It's a life-work balance model as well. So what does that look like? Well, we encourage everyone to work cross-functionally from team to team, from department to department, and we encourage them to collaborate because that's what's going to be expected in their next role. Thanks for tuning in to the Phelan Focus. If today's episode sparked new ideas or inspired action, please subscribe and leave a review on your favorite platform. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X at the Phelan Focus, and visit our website at thephelanfocus.com for more resources. Until next time, stay focused.